The call across the stars. The sky above Valerian Prime burned red. Great towers of glass and stone crumbled under the weight of the Krastan swarm. The peaceful cities, once full of music and art, were now filled with smoke, ash, and the cries of the wounded. The Valari people, soft-skinned and gentle-hearted, had never known war. Until now. Inside a dim control chamber beneath the planet's surface, Elo, a senior communication officer, stared at the broken screens. Each one showed a different disaster. Krastan war machines tearing through neighborhoods, black ships landing more troops, fires raging uncontrollably. Elo's hands trembled as he reached for the last functioning panel. His voice was quiet, cracked. With fear. We have no more ships, our shields are down, the outer colonies are silent. He looked at the others in the room. Scientists, teachers, artists, not a single soldier among them. We must call for help, said Loro, a teacher turned council aide. Surely someone will answer. But who? Elo whispered. They had already sent distress calls to the major powers, the Galactic Union, the trade clans, even the cold-minded Kirellans. All had refused. Some ignored them. Others offered meaningless words. We regret your suffering, or we do not interfere in regional conflicts. We send one last signal, Elo said, to a place no one dares to speak of. Gasps filled the room. Someone dropped a datapad. A voice from the shadows asked, You mean Earth? Elo nodded. Yes, Earth. No one truly knew what Earth was anymore. Long ago, humans had joined the stars, learned the laws of physics, diplomacy, and galactic trade. But then they changed. They became something different. Not evil. Not cruel. Just untamed. Rumors whispered that Earth was a death world, a place where even the air tried to kill you. And yet, from that chaos came people. Hard, clever, unbreakable. Deathworlders, someone muttered. Elo's hand hovered over the console. He opened a private channel to an ancient frequency buried deep in the records. One line of code, one final plea. The message was simple. We are under attack. The Krastan swarm is erasing our world. We beg for aid. Anyone. Please. He pressed, send. Then silence. The room sat still. Minutes passed. Then an hour. The Krastan marched closer. Everyone waited, hoping, fearing, praying. Suddenly the lights flickered. A new signal pushed its way into their system, strong, direct, and unlike anything they had received before. The screen lit up with a single image, a black symbol, shaped like a broken planet surrounded by steel wings. A voice followed, calm, human, and chillingly precise. This is Earth Response Unit 7. Message received. Evac protocol unnecessary. Hold position. Assistance arriving. Everyone stared at the screen. That's it? Loro asked. No demands? No price? Elo could barely breathe. They said they're coming. Just them? Yes. Only them. 3 days later, the Valari gathered on a high ridge just beyond the ruined capital. The skies were still full of ash. Krastan patrols moved slowly through the valley hunting survivors. The Valari had no weapons, no army, only fear and fading hope. Then from the clouds above, a deep thunder rolled. Not from weather, but engines. A sleek obsidian ship pierced the sky. It didn't glow. It didn't broadcast. It didn't announce itself with banners or songs. It just came down like a blade cutting through silence. The Krastan fired at it. Missiles, beams, artillery. The ship ignored them. It didn't even activate shields. It landed like it had done this 1,000 times. The hatch opened. 5 figures stepped out, humanoid, armored head to toe in black plates marked with scars and symbols. They walked in perfect silence, each footstep measured, each movement deliberate. Their presence alone made even the bravest Valari step back. The tallest figure stopped at the edge of the ridge and looked down at the battlefield. His voice came through the translator in smooth, cold tones. Target, Krastan swarm. Priority, extermination. Elo watched from behind a rock, heart racing. These were not diplomats. These were not peacekeepers. These were Deathworlders. Earth answers with fire. The 5 human soldiers stood like statues at the edge of the landing zone. Behind them, their ship closed its hatch and powered down. The Krastan swarm noticed their arrival, but instead of charging immediately, they paused. It was rare for the swarm to hesitate, but something about these new arrivals made even their hive instincts waver. The tall one, clearly the leader, turned slightly. His voice was calm, but absolute. Spread out. Sweep Sector 13. Confirm. Enemy movement. Minimal collateral. Maximum lesson. The others nodded without a word. They moved like a single mind, each one splitting off in different directions with perfect precision. The leader remained behind, standing atop the ridge, watching. From their hidden positions, the Valari could only stare. Elo's eyes were wide. 5 people, he whispered. Just 5. Loro crouched beside him. They don't seem afraid. No, Elo replied. They seem angry. Far below, one of the Deathworlders, smaller than the leader but faster, charged straight into the nearest Krastan patrol. The aliens were 3 meters tall, covered in thick chitin with claws and acid-spitting mandibles. They outnumbered him 20-1. It didn't matter. The human didn't fire a weapon, at first. He sprinted directly into the swarm and used his body as a weapon. His armored fist crushed one Krastan's head on impact. A low-energy blade slid from his forearm, glowing faintly. He moved like wind through tall grass, cutting, dodging, striking with brutal speed. One Krastan lunged at his back. He spun, grabbed it midair, and slammed it into another. Bones cracked. Green blood sprayed the rocks. Another Deathworlder activated something on her back. Twin drones rose silently and began scanning the area. She opened fire from the ridge, with near-invisible plasma rounds picking off Krastan from hundreds of meters away, never missing once. Back at the ridge, the leader tapped his helmet. Sector 13 is clear. 4 confirmed squads down. Minimal noise. A pause. Continue perimeter sweep. I'm advancing. He stepped forward, walking down the slope toward the battlefield. The Krastan were regrouping now, rallying to defend their command node. As the leader approached, they screamed and rushed in waves. He didn't run, he didn't dodge. He walked. With every step, bullets deflected off his armor. Acid splashed, but his suit hissed and cooled instantly. He raised one arm and released. A burst of compressed shock energy. It knocked 15 Krastan flat, cracking the ground beneath them. A pair of Krastan war beasts charged him. One grabbed his arm. He didn't flinch. He pulled its jaw apart with one motion and threw it into the second. The Valari were speechless. They're not just fighting, Loro said. They're teaching a lesson. Elo swallowed. I don't think they came to help us. I think they came to send a message. By the time the sun dipped below the mountains, the Krastan had retreated from the valley. Fires burned in their abandoned camps. Their bodies littered the field. No Valari had fired a shot. No weapons, no soldiers, no defense. Just 5 humans had arrived, and the war had changed. That night, the Deathworlders returned to the Valari compound. They didn't speak of victory, they didn't celebrate. They just cleaned their armor, reloaded their weapons, and checked their wounds. Elo gathered enough courage to step forward. Why did you come? He asked the leader. The human looked up. His eyes were calm. You asked for help. Yes, but we expected aid, ships, food, shelter. Not, Elo gestured at the battlefield. Not this, the man replied quietly. We don't send comfort first, we send fire. If that doesn't work, then we send warmth. Elo shivered at his words. Another soldier approached carrying a small device. She handed it to Elo. This connects to our command. You can call for supplies, medicine, shelter. You'll get it all. Elo took the device, stunned. Why do you do this? The leader looked out toward the distant smoke. Because someone has to remind the galaxy what happens when you prey on the weak. First encounter with the swarm. The next morning, the air still carried the scent of smoke and acid. The Valari had no words for what they had witnessed the night before. For them, war was something ancient, distant, a dark history buried under peace and progress. But now it had come to their door. And with it, something else had arrived, Earth's fury. The Deathworlders were already awake before the sun rose. They didn't talk much. They cleaned weapons. They checked gear. They moved in patterns, always aware, always watching the sky. Elo stood beside Loro on the platform overlooking the scorched valley. They never rest, do they? No, Loro said quietly. They live like the war never ends. Below them, one of the Deathworlders, a younger male with a long scar running across his helmet, was running drills with a group of Valari. He had lined up 10 civilians and handed them basic defense sticks. You won't win with weapons alone, the Deathworlder said in a voice like gravel. You need to move like you want to survive. He demonstrated a fast sidestep, then a sudden roll and upward strike. The Valari stared. Try it, he ordered. They hesitated. The human walked over, gently adjusted a Valari's stance, and nodded. Now, again, don't think, move. The Valari stumbled through the motions, awkward, slow, but trying. The human didn't mock them. He simply repeated, again. Farther from camp, the leader, Leo, had taken 2 of his team members on a scouting mission into the western forest, where the Krastan were regrouping. The air was dense. The trees were tall and knotted, branches twisted like claws. Krastan tracks marked the mud, deep grooves from heavy armor and clawed feet. Leo stopped and knelt beside a burned tree. He touched the soil. Still warm. They moved through here 4 hours ago, he said. 2 squads, 1 large transport. They're building a new forward base. His teammate, a woman with short hair and silent steps, tapped her wristpad. A 3D scan bloomed in the air. Looks like a shield generator here, barracks here, could be a regional command. Leo nodded. That means they're planning to stay. And us? She asked. Leo smiled under his helmet. We're going to ruin that plan. They waited until nightfall. The team crept through the brush like shadows. No lights, no noise, not even the hum of their tech gave them away. Deathworlders were trained for more than battle. They were taught how to be ghosts. As they approached the Krastan camp, they saw the glowing blue field of a temporary shield. Inside, tall Krastan creatures moved in groups, carrying weapons and setting up automated turrets. Leo pointed at the power relay. We hit that first, then take out the command node. His team split into 3, slipping through the gaps between sentries. One crawled beneath the roots of a fallen tree. Another climbed a vine-covered ridge, sniper rifle ready. Leo reached the relay and planted a small cube on its side. He tapped his wrist twice. The cube blinked red, then blue, then green. Boom. The field collapsed with a flash of white light. The Krastan screeched in alarm, but by then the humans were already inside. Plasma rounds hissed through the air. The sniper dropped targets one after another. Leo's blade cut clean through a Krastan officer. His other teammate rolled a shock, mine into a crowd, stunning them long enough to finish the job. Back at the Valari camp, the sky lit up in the distance. Booms echoed across the hills. The civilians froze. Elo stared at the flashes. Is that them? Loro answered softly. Yes. They said they were going to scout. That is scouting? By dawn, the Krastan forward base was gone. Nothing but metal scraps and smoldering craters. The Deathworlders returned without ceremony. They walked back into camp as if they'd gone for a short hike. No boasting, no celebration. Leo reported to Elo with a brief nod. Enemy base neutralized. They'll pull back for at least a few days. Elo's mouth opened, but no words came. Leo looked him in the eyes. This isn't a rescue, it's a cleansing. You were never supposed to beg for help from Earth, but now that you did, you'll never be ignored again. Bringing death to the Deathbringers, The once calm valleys of Valerian Prime now held a different kind of silence. Not the silence of fear, but one that followed devastation. The Krastan were retreating, unsure and disoriented, and the Valari were beginning to see a faint spark of hope. Leo and his team were not resting. The Deathworlders never stayed still for long. While the Valari tried to rebuild damaged shelters and heal the wounded, the humans were planning their next strike. Inside a makeshift command center, built from salvaged Krastan panels and Earth equipment, Leo stood over a glowing holomap. His fingers moved quickly, marking enemy fallback routes and weak points. One of his soldiers, the silent sniper from the previous mission, pointed at a blinking red icon. This is their main hive node. If we hit it, the swarm loses command. Leo nodded. Then we cut off the head. Another team member, broader and more aggressive, asked, "Are we going in alone?" Leo's answer was simple. "We don't wait for reinforcements. We are the reinforcements." Meanwhile, outside the command center, Valari volunteers continued training. The young Deathworlder with the scar, known for his fast and brutal fighting style, stood with a group of frightened Valari civilians holding practice weapons. "Don't. Hold it like a flute," he growled at one, adjusting their grip. "Hold it like you mean to live." The Valari student flinched, then nodded. The humans weren't cruel, but they were intense. Every moment of their lives was shaped by survival, and they were now forcing that reality onto a species who had never known pain like this. Later, one of the Valari whispered to Elo, "They scare me." Elo nodded. "They scare me too, but I've never felt safer." That evening, the Deathworlders moved. No fanfare, no promises, just a short message. "Hold your ground. If we don't return in 3 days, assume the worst." Then they were gone, into the mountains where the Krastan hive node pulsed like a diseased heart. The assault began at midnight. Leo's team slipped into the Krastan fortress, bypassing sensors, scaling walls, cutting down guards in silence. They placed charges at structural weak points, mapped the hive tunnels, and triggered infighting among the Krastan by hacking into their swarm signals. By the time the Krastan realized something was wrong, half their base was already collapsing. Tate. Fighting that followed was savage. Blades clashed, gunfire echoed in narrow passages, and blood, green and red, covered the floors. Leo's team fought like demons unleashed. They didn't just strike, they tore through the swarm like fire through dry leaves. Back at the Valari camp, distant explosions shook the ground. Everyone froze. Lights flickered. The sound of thunder echoed across the hills. One elder Valari turned to Elo. "Is this the end?" Elo stared at the horizon. "No. This is how humans say hello to their enemies." At the Krastan hive node, Leo planted the final charge. A wounded Krastan commander crawled toward him, hissing through shattered mandibles. You are not saviors." Leo knelt beside it. "You're right." He pressed the detonator. The blast turned the mountain base into molten rock and smoke. Fire bloomed high into the air, visible for hundreds of kilometers. The sound rolled through the valleys, and for the first time, the Krastan swarm began to flee. 3 days later, the humans returned. Their armor was scorched. One limped. Another held a cracked helmet. But all 5 were alive and silent as ever. Leo dropped a small Krastan commander insignia at Elo's feet. "They won't return to this sector. Not now. Not for a long time." The Valari stared at them, not just with fear now, but with something else. Respect. That night, the Deathworlders stood alone outside the camp watching the stars. They didn't cheer. They didn't rest. Leo whispered, almost to himself. They asked for help. What they got was Earth's answer. The turning tide. The Krastan swarm had never known retreat. They were a force of endless hunger, always advancing, always consuming. But now, for the first time in generations, they fell back, disorganized, panicked, broken. Word spread across the stars that the swarm had lost a major hive node. The galaxy had heard whispers of this kind of thing before, but never believed it. Until now. The reason? Humans. Back on Valerian Prime, the days grew quieter. The skies cleared, the smoke faded. The Krastan attacks stopped. The Valari began rebuilding, not just homes but their sense of identity. They had been peaceful by choice, not weakness. But now, they were learning how to protect peace, not just hope for it. The Deathworlders remained. Not forever, but long enough to prepare the Valari for what came next. Leo stood before a crowd of Valari volunteers. They now wore light armor crafted from Earth and Valari tech combined. They had simple rifles, but their eyes were sharper. Their movements had changed, no more hesitation, just focus. "This is your world," Leo said. "We came to show you how to fight. Now it's your turn to keep it." One Valari, a younger, one named Kiro, stepped forward. "Will you leave us?" Leo paused. "Eventually. But not until we know you won't need us again." Elsewhere in the Galactic core, council members of various species met in secret. Holoscreens flashed footage of the Deathworlders. Ruthless combat, impossible precision, overwhelming strength. "They sent only 5? One council member said, eyes wide. "5, another replied, "and destroyed a Krastan command base." A third leaned forward. "They didn't come for alliance, they didn't ask for permission. Earth acted on their own." The room fell silent. For centuries, Earth had remained distant, watching, listening, rarely interfering. But now, everyone understood something very clear. Earth had not become weak. Earth had become patient. Back on Valerian Prime, the Deathworlders launched one final operation before withdrawing. Their target was not on the planet, but in orbit. A Krastan war frigate had been spotted just outside the system, gathering data, likely preparing a last attempt to retake the ground they had lost. Leo's team, along with a squad of newly trained Valari, took a stealth shuttle and docked with the enemy ship. What followed was part battle, part lesson. The Valari fought bravely, applying everything the humans had taught them. They breached doors, held formation, and rescued hostages. The humans stepped in when things got critical, but they let the Valari lead. When the Krastan captain fell, it wasn't Leo who delivered the final blow. It was Kiro. After the mission, Leo placed a Valari banner on the enemy command deck. "This wasn't Earth's victory," he said. "This was yours." Back on the surface, Elo recorded a message for the Galactic Council. "We called out for help. Earth responded, not with pity, not with politics, but with power. They gave us tools, strength, and knowledge. But more than that, they gave us fear. Our enemy's fear." He paused, then added, "From now on, Valerian is not just a peaceful world. We are a protected one, and we owe that to the Deathworlders." Elsewhere, in space, other species watched carefully. Some were amazed, others were afraid. The cost of Fury victory came, but it did not come clean. The Krastan swarm had been shattered, their forces in retreat. Valerian Prime was no longer under threat. But while the cities rose again and the sky grew quiet, something lingered in the eyes of those who had fought, especially the humans. Deathworlders did not celebrate victories like others did. They carried them. The camp grew quieter after the last orbital mission. The humans spent more time apart, fixing gear, checking weapons that no longer needed to be used. There was no laughter, no cheering, just the sounds of sharpening blades and humming machines. Ella watched Leo sitting alone beside a field that once held a burning Krastan nest. The leader hadn't spoken much since returning. His armor was scratched, and there was a deep dent on the chest plate, proof of the last. "Close call." Elo approached slowly. "You haven't said much since you got back." Leo didn't look up. "There's not much to say. But you won. We all did." Leo turned toward him, his expression unreadable. "Victory always has a price." Later that night, the team gathered in private. One of them, the youngest, had been badly injured during the assault on the Krastan frigate. He had fought bravely, even smiled before collapsing. The medics did all they could, but the damage inside his suit was too much. He died hours later. The Valari built a quiet memorial in his honor, a glowing stone near the camp's edge with his Earth name carved in 2 languages. The humans didn't ask for it. They simply stood in silence before it. Leo placed the fallen soldier's helmet beside the stone. That evening, the Valari lit candles across the settlement. One by one, flickering flames lined the walkways. It wasn't part of their culture before. It was something new, something learned from humans. Loro sat beside Elo watching the lights. "Do you think they'll stay?" Loro asked. Elo shook his head. "No. They don't belong here. But I think a part of them will never leave." Later, Leo called a small group of Valari together. He gave them access codes, training files, and a storage unit filled with advanced gear. "This is your world now," he said. "And your job is to make sure you never need us again." Kiro stepped forward. "You taught us how to fight." Leo nodded. "Fighting is only half of it, the rest is knowing why." He looked at the group, his voice quieter. "We fight because we remember what it's like to be left behind. Earth learned that the hard way. That's why we don't ignore distress calls. That's why we bring fury when others bring delay." That night, Leo walked back to the quiet ridge where the ship had first landed. He looked up at the stars, now calm, without flashing weapons or falling debris. Another Deathworlder stood beside him. "We did good work here." Leo nodded. "Yes, but it cost us." The other soldier paused. "It always does." Leo finally removed his helmet. His face was tired, not old, but heavy. Not from years, but from weight carried too long. "They don't know how close they came to being wiped out," he said. "No," the other replied, "but now they know how close they are to being protected." Before dawn, the humans prepared their ship for departure. Valari of all ages gathered to see them off. Children waved, elders bowed, warriors saluted. No words were needed. Elo stepped forward. "If we ever need you again," Leo handed him a small metallic disc. "Use this. Only once. If you do, we come. But if we come, it won't be quiet." The ramp closed. The ship rose, and in moments they were gone. The Valari stood still, watching the sky where the ship vanished. A long silence passed. Then Kero spoke. "They're not angels. They're not devils." Elo answered. "They're what you get when you leave Earth alone for too long." Earth's message to the stars far from Valerian Prime, in the high halls of the Galactic Council, panic echoed behind closed doors. Footage of the Krastan defeat played on giant screens, grainy clips of Deathworlders tearing through monsters twice their size, ignoring wounds, ignoring fear, fighting like forces of nature. Ambassadors from dozens of species debated in hushed voices. "They only sent 5, someone whispered. 5, another repeated, stunned. "Imagine if they had sent a battalion." An elder delegate from a long neutral race stood up slowly. "They used to ask for seats at this table. We laughed. Then they stopped asking." He looked around the room. "Now they don't speak. They don't plead. They act." Silence fell over the chamber. Meanwhile, on Valerian Prime, the stars had returned to peace. Cities rose again. Forests regrew. The people remembered what they had faced, but more importantly, they remembered who had answered. The Valari held an annual ceremony beneath the hill where the Deathworlders first arrived. They called it the Night of Steel and Fire, not to celebrate war, but to remember resilience. Elo became a senior advisor to the new planetary defense system. Kiro led the first planetary guard unit made up of both soldiers and former civilians. Their armor bore a symbol, half Valari sun, half Earth steel wings. "We defend now," Kiro said one day, "not because we are warriors, but because we never want to see fear like that again." Then, without warning, Earth sent a signal to every known world. It was brief. When the weak call, we answer. When the strong threaten, we remind them. Earth is listening. We are Deathworlders. We are not your rulers. We are your shadow. Your last warning. If peace fails, we come. The message was not signed with a name. No human face appeared. Only the symbol, Earth's broken circle surrounded by steel wings. It was enough. On war-torn planets across the galaxy, desperate leaders began speaking Earth's name with newfound respect. Contact the Terrans. Offer them alliance. Make sure we stay off their radar. The name Deathworlders became more than myth. It became law. Back on Earth, Leo stood in a quiet hangar, watching another group of Deathworlders train. He said little, just watched. A young recruit approached him. "Sir, what happens if another world calls for help?" Leo looked down at the recruit. "Then we go," he said. "And we show them what help from Earth really means." Final scene. On a distant world, a weak signal blinks from a damaged tower. "This is Colony B7 requesting assistance. Coordinates attached." Silence. Then, a response. "Earth command received. Help is on the way." A ship launches. The stars prepare to witness Earth's fury again.